Sonic Cinema Audiobooks proudly presents The Bar Brawl, narrated by Chris from 11 Lives. The dim glow of neon lights flickered outside as Jake pushed through the heavy wooden door of the bar. He wasn't looking for trouble. In fact, he was trying to escape it. His day had been a brutal one. Work piling up, his personal life in shambles, and a tension he couldn't shake pressing down on his chest. All he wanted was a drink, something strong to numb the chaos swirling in his head. The place was packed, as it always was on Friday nights, filled with voices, laughter, and the unmistakable scent of sweat and cheap cologne. Jake moved toward the bar, his shoulders hunched, trying to stay invisible. The bartender gave him a quick nod of recognition as he slid into a corner, hoping to blend into the background. Just as the first sip of bourbon touched his lips, it happened. A sudden, forceful shove. A stranger, tall and broad-shouldered, rammed into Jake, sending his drink crashing to the floor. The amber liquid splashed at his feet, and for a moment, everything froze. Jake felt the tension in the air shift, as if the entire bar sensed the brewing storm. The guy turned slowly, his eyes narrowing in an arrogant smirk. "Watch where you're standing, man," he spat, voice dripping with hostility. Jake wasn't the type to engage, not anymore. He'd promised himself to stay clear of fights after the last one almost cost him his job. But tonight was different. The stress from his day, the weight of his own failures, it was all too much. He looked at the shattered glass on the floor, then back up at the guy, his fists clenching almost instinctively. "Look, I'm not in the mood," Jake muttered, trying to keep the edge out of his voice. But the stranger didn't care. A crowd had already started forming, sensing the tension. With one swift move, the guy swung, his fist aiming straight for Jake's face. Time slowed as Jake sidestepped, his body moving on pure instinct, the punch whizzing past his cheek. The rush of adrenaline hit like a wave, and without thinking, Jake retaliated. His fist collided with the guy's jaw, a hard, calculated jab that sent the man stumbling back into a table. Glasses toppled, and suddenly, the entire bar seemed to erupt in chaos. Jake didn't want this. He didn't want the fight. But in the whirlwind of flying fists and broken bottles, survival took over. One by one, other men emboldened by the chaos lunged at him. Jake ducked as a pool cue swung overhead, cracking against the wall behind him. He countered with a swift elbow to the ribs of another attacker, sending him to the floor with a grunt. The noise was deafening. Shouts, curses, the sound of breaking glass ringing in his ears. Jake's breath came in short, sharp bursts as he dodged punches, his muscles moving faster than his thoughts. He caught sight of the bartender out of the corner of his eye, coolly pressing a hidden button beneath the bar. Security. But, until they arrived, it was just him and the madness. A chair flew past Jake's head, smashing into the mirror behind the bar, showering the room in shards of glass. He spun, blocking a punch and delivering a swift knee to another man's stomach, feeling the force of impact in his bones. Every move was precise, his body reacting as if it had been preparing for this moment all day. Maybe it had. Finally, just as Jake landed a final punch to the last of his attackers, the heavy footsteps of security guards thundered into the room. The chaos began to die down. The men who had moments ago been so bold now shrinking away, knowing their time was up. Jake stood there, panting, the tension in his muscles slowly easing as the bouncers took control. Blood trickled from a small cut on his knuckle, and his heartbeat pounded in his ears. The adrenaline was fading, but the weight he had carried into the bar was gone, replaced by a strange sense of calm. The bartender, unfazed by the destruction around him, wiped down the counter as if nothing had happened. "Another drink?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Jake managed to grin, brushing glass from his jacket. "Yeah," he replied, his voice steady now. "Make it a double." He sank back into his seat, the remnants of the brawl still settling around him. But for the first time in a long while, Jake felt at ease. His fight, both internal and external, finally over. If only for tonight.